Get Clucked Show is a High Noon production. Check out all the High Noon productions at highnoonpodcast.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 1, the pilot episode of Get Clucked, a Realm Royale show. I am your host, ad infinitum, the Blevins, and this show is going to be all about Realm Royale, the game itself, the scene around it, and kind of what it's starting out as and what it becomes. I'll just jump right into it. I'm going to talk about myself a little bit. I'll talk about Realm Royale if you're not familiar with it, or if you've just seen pictures of chickens on your Twitter feeds the last couple of days, or maybe you saw Ninja and Tim the Tatman play it and you're just kind of interested to see what it is. I'm going to talk about what I like about it, what I think is really great about it. I'm also going to talk about maybe some of the concerns I have going into this new game, and I'll talk about the future and longevity I believe it has, and then we'll round out the show there at the end. But let's first start and talk a little bit about me and the show, why I'm doing this, and what I plan to do with it. So if you're unfamiliar with me, I, again, am the Blevins. You may know me from High Noon Podcast and many of the other shows on High Noon Productions. I am one of the founders of High Noon Productions. We have thus far focused almost exclusively on Overwatch content, though my gaming roots go further back into Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone, as well as some other games. But the last almost 3 years now have been almost entirely devoted to the game of Overwatch and the esports community around Overwatch and Overwatch League. All that stuff can be found at highnoonpodcast.com. This first episode is actually being streamed on the High Noon Podcast Twitch channel, and will likely be streamed on this channel moving forward until we start up a Get Clucked Twitch channel or what have you. Everything, I guess that kind of segues me into this first episode, and maybe even the first couple episodes, is that this is going to be very build as we go, fly the plane, or build the plane while we're flying it, so to speak. As you can see around me here, if you're watching on YouTube, a lot of these assets and whatnot very strung together. I don't have any music or anything picked out, and honestly, until earlier today, I didn't even know what I was going to call the show. But I decided on Get Clucked for the obvious kind of reasons. I don't know. I feel like I don't need to explain that name. That's kind of the beauty of it, is that the name makes so much sense, and it's all because of that little guy right up there, the little pollo bandito, as I call him. Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I plan on, kind of continuing this show, and kind of like High Noon Podcast was, it's going to start out as something. It may change. It's going to grow, adapt to what I believe is going to be best for the show and best for everyone out there. And it's also going to be it is also going to be based a lot on community feedback. You probably hear it all the time, but that's the number one thing that's important to me, is what you guys want to see. So if you have any comments, gripes, groans, complaints, likes, dislikes, anything, put them down below in the comments. Tweet at us at Get Clucked Show on Twitter. You can also I have a Gmail too, getcluckedshow@gmail.com. Send any emails, any questions, anything, you can send them there. Or you can just tweet at me on Twitter if you've got that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much going to be it about the show. It's a work in progress, but I wanted to get it out because that's really the biggest thing for me, is just getting something started, and let's just roll with it, Whoa. So let's move on and talk about Realm Royale. So the show, the reason you're here, the game itself, if you're not familiar with it, I'm going to go over it a little bit. It is a battle royale game in the same vein as a PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds or Fortnite or H1Z1. It's got that same concept. 100-ish people all thrown onto one island. Last person standing lives. it could be that could be the end of it, and it would be a run-of-the-mill game just like any of the other ones that are out there. But Realm Royale takes a little bit of a different spin on it here. It is a class-based and ability-based battle royale genre. So in PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds or H1Z1, you're just dropped into a scenario. Basically, you find guns, you find armor, and you fight it out with that. In Fortnite, you do kind of the same thing, but there's also the added mechanic of building. And Fortnite also is a little bit more cartoony. PUBG and even H1Z1 to an extent very realistic and kind of M-rated to a degree. Fortnite very much PG-13-ish. I don't think anyone is, maybe not PG, probably PG-13 because guns and stuff, but very kid-friendly, very silly, doesn't take itself very seriously. Realm Royale feels very much the same way. That's one of the reasons I'm very excited about it. I've talked before about why I think Fortnite has succeeded so much. One of the main reasons is obviously the big one. It's free, so is Realm Royale. It is easily marketed towards children, and by children I mean, young teenagers in that area, 13 to 29 or whatever that demographic is, that people are 18 to 25, but even younger than that, kids that are 10, 12 years old, their parents are probably not too unless they're very conservative, probably letting their kids play Fortnite. Because there's really nothing too bad about it besides the just existence of guns and you're shooting people. But there's no blood, there's no gore. It's very silly. And Realm Royale feels very much the same way. Very kid-friendly. I mean, when you get downed, you literally turn into a chicken, and you run around, and that's really great. So it takes a lot of what has made Fortnite very successful and has actually added a whole other level to it. And I'll talk more about the specifics of it in a little bit. But basically, the long and short of it is class-based. There's abilities as well. Class-based, ability-based, kind of silly battle royale game that has the same general game mechanic of dropping in to an island and surviving to be the last one standing. So that's kind of the 10,000 foot overview of what Realm Royale is. I'm sure most of you probably already know that, but in case you are listening and finding about this for the first time, it is a game that is free on Steam, and I will link the Steam link to you can go download the early access alpha, whatever you want to call it, in Steam. You can go, as long as you have Steam and a computer, you can go play it. A question that I've seen the devs get asked a million times, and I'm sure if I'm going to be doing this show, I'm going to get asked as well, if and when it's going to come out for console. The answer that they've given is there's no definitive date, but they're trying. So that's the last time I will address that. You can refer back to this episode to get the answer to that. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what I like about Realm Royale. The first one is classes. Much like an RPG, akin to maybe like a World of Warcraft, or even almost like an Overwatch. There's different classes, so you can pick a warrior, a mage, a hunter, an assassin, or an engineer. I believe that's all of them. I don't know, 5 classes. Yeah, I think that's 5 classes. And each of those classes has a unique movement ability. For example, the mage's movement ability can like fly around, kind of like Superman, whereas the hunter just has a roll, basically like a dodge roll, almost like Dark Souls. Each of these classes are differentiated by those movement abilities. They also have the ability to pick up in different weapons chests. They have the ability to pick up different class abilities. As of right now, which is the 15th of June, 2018, each class, I believe, has 4 different abilities that they can get. And there's varying levels, kind of like in Fortnite. There's a common, a rare, an epic, and then a legendary rarity, each with increased power levels for those abilities. But they're all unique to the classes. So if you're a warrior, you cannot pick up a mage ability and vice versa. Which leads me into the next portion of ability. So each of these classes have unique abilities. They're kind of tied together, I guess. the abilities of the engineer are very different and act differently and cause you to play a different way than the hunter, for instance. The classes also differentiate with their legendary items. So if you, and I'll talk a little bit about crafting in a second, but if you craft a legendary weapon for a hunter, only the hunter can use it. The hunter's kind of like a Hanzo bow from Overwatch, whereas the warrior's weapon is a throwing axe, which does a lot of damage. Wildly different play styles for the weapons, different power levels, etc. Something like a mage is legendary weapon might not be as powerful as the hunters, but the class abilities are very powerful. So it's an interesting way to balance the heroes, where it's not just everyone is just rushing to get their legendary weapon. The abilities also play into it as well. And as we're seeing, I mean, even just a couple hours ago from recording this episode, the abilities and the legendary weapon, or the legendary weapons, are actually getting another wrinkle added to them, which I will cover in a later episode. But like I mentioned before, shards and crafting is another reason that I really like this game. So basically, you can disenchant items and abilities that either you can't use or you don't want. So if you see that 15th gray shotgun that you don't want, you can disenchant it and turn it into shards. Shards are basically just a material used to craft weapons, abilities, and armor. Armor is another added function here for Realm Royale. Basically, the armor is universal to everyone. There's a headpiece, gloves, boots, and a chest piece. They all add armor, and the legendary versions have a secondary ability as well, not specific to the classes. I believe they've talked about different pieces. They've talked about different ideas for adding more flavor to those pieces of armor. Again, I'll be talking about all the new stuff they add in other episodes. This is just the basic first episode for you. So you can take those items and abilities that you don't like. You can disenchant them into shards to be able to craft what you do like at a forge. The forges are points of interest on the map. Unlike Fortnite, really, and even PUBG, they don't. There's different landmarks, which if you've played the game dozens of times, you know which kind of areas have loot and where you want to kind of go for. But if you're playing for the first time, there's really no points of interest that you're really drawn to naturally in the game if it's your first time playing. Whereas Realm Royale has these things called forges, which is where you take your shards and you make your weapons, armor, abilities, and potions. There are natural points of interest that you can see right on the map. You know where every shard or where every forge is, and a lot of the game is built around fighting for forges, fighting at forges, controlling forges, all that stuff. It's a built-in point of interest. I'd be interested to see if they add other natural points of interest into the game. Again, will all be talked about in later episodes if that does happen. But that's a really great thing that I like. The built-in point of interest where you drop in, you know kind of what your plan is, where you're going to drop. There's a lot. It seems like the density of loot essentially is much higher in this game because you can turn that loot into other stuff. It's not like, you in Fortnite when you see that gray tactical shotgun, the 15th one, it's like, well, this is useless. This is just laying here. It does nothing for me. In Realm Royale, keep them coming, baby. I'm going to disenchant all that stuff, and then I'm going to get my legendary class ability much faster. So it's much at least psychologically, it's much more rewarding there to come across, quote unquote, useless items, because nothing's useless. You can shard it all, get it all out of here, which is really great, and kind of makes the strategy more concise in Realm Royale. The next thing that I want to talk about, which is again kind of the basis of the name of the show, is the chicken concept in the game. Basically, the chicken is, it's kind of like the de facto mascot for the game, or at least like it's the de facto mascot. It's not the official one, I guess, but it's the de facto mascot there. the chicken happens when you get downed, whether it's solo, squads, or duos. When you get downed for the first time, your health goes to 0. You turn into a chicken, and that chicken is a little tiny chicken that's about half the size, I'd say, maybe a quarter or something, of a normal hero. It runs around at a pretty slow speed. It can jump, and it makes kind of a funny noise. It's pretty hilarious. Everyone I've talked to really loves the chicken. But basically, when you get turned into a chicken, you get a little timer. A little, I believe it's 20-second timer. And if you're in the heat of a fight and there's 5 different people all attacking each other, you get turned into a chicken, you can run away, and in 20 seconds you're going to be revived back with some amount of health left, as your normal hero. Now, it's honestly, it's a genius way to take something that just is kind of taken for granted in a Fortnite or a PUBG, where if you're playing solos and you get, plinked from across the map, headshot, and you get downed, in solos you're just dead. At least in duos and squads you can get revived, but in solos, you get headshot from across the map, you're dead. Game over, bro. Start a new one. Get back in there. In Realm Royale, if you get plinked across the map, you get turned into a chicken. Okay, you run. The person that plinks you has to, that hits you across the map, has to decide, okay, am I going to travel across the map to go finish this chicken, or am I going to just keep going and be like, okay, well, that happened, and I can't afford to go attack this guy because maybe I bring myself out in the open. It gives you a lot more chance, a lot more playability. Lets you play the game that you've invested your time in longer. Unlike PUBG or Fortnite, where if it's solos and you've spent 5 to 7 minutes building up and you just get randomly sniped from across the map, your game's over. You just wasted that time. Here, at least you have a shot. Granted, you're probably not making it out of the chicken phase very often, and I'll be the first to admit that the satisfaction of the chicken from the getting chickened side is probably, or getting clucked side, as we may start calling it, is almost certainly purely psychological, because you probably only survive the chicken like maybe 10% of the time at max, I'd say. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower, I don't know. But it's just a great feeling to know that you have a chance to survive, and there's some cool things you can do where you can run around and you can like jump through windows and like maybe bamboozle people. The number of times I've bamboozled people where like they're trying to shoot me and I like outmaneuver them and juke them as the chicken, and then I come back. It's not a lot, but it's a non-zero number of times, and they always feel great. It just feels great to be able to do that. So really a genius way to add a recovery mechanism for solos, at least, that is also funny and really is kind of stealing the show, I think, in a lot of ways. All the people I've talked about that don't know a lot about Realm Royale but have seen it are like, oh, is that the chicken game? Oh, is that the game with the chicken? Is that the one where you turn into a chicken? Yes, it is, which is kind of why, again, get cluck chicken. You get it. You guys get it. I know you do. But yeah, so that's a great mechanic that I really I think it's appreciated in the sense that it's funny, but I think it's underappreciated as a game design mechanic. I think it's genius. It's perfect. It's beautiful. I'd love to talk to the person that came up with that idea, and kind of pick their brain about how they came up with that. Now there's a caveat. You can only get turned into a chicken 3 times. After that 3rd time, you're done. You're fried, so to speak. You're clucked, if you will. Not coming back from that. But it's just a great way. The other kind of caveat that goes with the chicken is your legendary weapon for the classes is, first of all, much stronger than most of the legendary class weapons are much stronger than any of the other weapons, with the exception of maybe legendary rarity weapons. But in order to get a weapon, you need 120 shards, which, for reference, a common item disenchanted gives you 5 shards of green, 10 purple, 15, etc., etc. So you need 120 shards, plus you need a chicken trophy. And how do you get a chicken trophy? Well, when you kill a chicken, they drop a trophy, and you've got 60 seconds to pick it up. Anyone on the team can pick it up, but you need to have one of those chicken trophies and 120 shards in order to make a legendary weapon. So what you cannot do, it kind of incentivizes you to either take fights and win fights, or to build a strategy around not having a legendary weapon, which again, it just inherently and naturally not it doesn't make you think about this from a, oh well, I've played 180,000 hours of PUBG and I now understand that, I need to drop in these places and go here. It's more of a, oh, this just makes sense because of the mechanics and the markers and indicators in the game leads me to naturally understand these concepts. So I love that. I love it. It's not like you have to do it one way or the other. It's just, it makes intuitive sense and is going to make it very simple for new players to start picking it up and playing. And also gives enough complexity and skill diversity for skilled players to be able to perform at a peak performance. Even just in the the week that I've been playing, which is essentially how long the game's been out, I've seen myself improve significantly, and being able to see your progress and get better at a game is very, very rewarding, which I'm sure PUBG and Fortnite have, but I didn't see it in the same way that I've seen it in Realm Royale. Last thing I want to talk about here for what I really, really like about Realm Royale is a big one, and it's there's no building in the game. There's no Fortnite building. There's no collecting of wood and brick and metal to make ramps and all that stuff. None of that junk is in the game. Now, I call it junk because not just so if it was just me and I were the only one that didn't like that, I'd be like, you know what, fine. Fortnite is just not my game. But I can't tell you the number of people I've talked to, friends, and even people I don't really know, that like when you talk about Fortnite, they're like, oh man, Fortnite looks like such a cool game, but I hate the building. But I can't build and I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. But the building is stupid and I just want to be able to shoot the guns. But a lot of people I've talked to hate the building. It's not even just like a handful. It is a large number of people I've talked to absolutely despise building. I'm one of them. And it's not even so much that I hate building. It's that the building didn't come natural to me and I never got a hang of it. And it doesn't feel like it adds anything to me. Now, don't get me wrong. When you watch Ninja or Tim or Myth or any of these like skilled Lupo, any of these skilled players build, it's like an art form. Okay, they do it so well. I'm not saying that it's not a skill intensive thing. I'm saying I'm not skilled at it and I didn't like it. And I've talked to a large number of people that feel the same way and hate the building aspect of Fortnite. And I have not, and maybe I just haven't talked to enough people about it specifically. I have not come across a person that's like, man, I love the building so much. It's more of a, well, I don't like PUBG as much. I like Fortnite and, I've come to accept the building and now I'm good at it. It's not like a, man, I came to Fortnite because of the building and the building is great. It's more like they like Fortnite in spite of the building is what I've personally come across. Now, let me know in the comments if you like building or not. I mean, I hope and pray, as much as I hope that my autofocus starts working correctly. There we go. That I hope that we don't get building in Realm Royale, and I see no reason for them to do that. But I hate building. I think a lot of people also hated building. I think it was like a secret concern for a lot of people, and I think Realm Royale scratches an itch that a lot of people, especially RPG and even like just Blizzard gamers, MOBA players, have really been looking for, and it's this class-based, ability-based battle royale, because the other ones are either kind of junky and also $40, or they're Fortnite and it's all about building, and there's a huge skill gap between people who know how to build well and not, and it takes a very long time. There's a lot of things that Fortnite, there's a ton of things that Fortnite does amazingly, but there's some things that kind of go unnoticed by new players. So just keep that in mind. I think Realm Royale does a really, really good job of addressing a lot of those things. But I want to move on and talk about some of the concerns I have for Realm Royale here. Even though I am obviously starting this show for a reason, I have a lot of aspirations for it, and I think it's a very good game. I'm just personally, I haven't felt this way about a game since Overwatch. But I do have a couple of concerns. The first big one, the big elephant in the room, is Hi-Rez themselves. They have somewhat of a reputation for starting projects and not seeing them through, or dropping support if they don't get, they don't pick up, or maybe the game just doesn't pick up at all. The game Hand of the Gods, which is a card game that Smite did, is discontinued. I believe there's a couple other projects, I'm not an expert on Hi-Rez, that have kind of gotten dropped by Hi-Rez. And even Realm Royale itself has gone through a number of iterations. Now, given that kind of reputation that Hi-Rez has, everything I've seen firsthand since Realm Royale has come out has led me to believe that they understand and appreciate the kind of the golden goose that's been put on their platter, and hopefully they can take at least some bit of a lead from Epic, and in terms of understanding the gravitas of what they have and how they can really, instead of doing what a company like Niantic for Pokemon Go did, which was nothing for many months after they were literally the biggest thing in the world, and just kind of dropping support for many, many months and losing so much of their player base, to now where they're doing a lot of stuff with Pokemon Go and Niantic, but it was too little too late. I'd like to think that Hi-Rez understands what they have and what they need to do, and the bar that kind of Fortnite has set in knowing, using that as a barometer for what they need to do to be successful. So that's one concern. It's a concern I have. It's not an active one necessarily, but it's one that I have in the back of my mind, being like, okay, well, if, Realm Royale after month 3 doesn't hit their numbers or whatever, they're going to, they're going to drop support of it. I don't know. I don't have any insider information for that. It's just some rumblings I've heard out in the nether for that. The other concern here kind of ties off of that is Realm Royale just the flavor of the month? I mean, it's gotten some really great numbers. It's gotten, Tim the Tatman, Ninja, Josh OG, Summit 1G, all those popular streamers have been playing it at least a little bit. But is it just a flavor of the month? All those same guys and popular streamers and girls, they play, the new Call of Duty game that comes out. They play the new, whatever flavor of the month game that comes out. And, who's playing Destiny 2 now? Some people, sure. There's some people playing Destiny 2, and there's probably going to be a bunch of people that play Destiny 2 again when the new update or whatever comes out for it. But, is Destiny 2 a big game? Is it a big esport? Is it a top 10 game regularly streamed on Twitch? Is it a top 10 game by any metric? Probably not. I don't have the research on that to back that up necessarily, but just colloquially and anecdotally, it's definitely not in my eyes, as far as what I can actively see. And is Realm Royale going to go the way of a Destiny 2 that's just a mildly supported game that has a dedicated group of people but is never anything bigger than that? I don't know. That's just another one of the concerns I have. It seems to me right now in the June 15th, a week or so after it was released to early access alpha, that's not what it's going to be, that it has at least the potential to be bigger than that. But I don't know. That's another concern I have. I think it's a concern we should all have and understand and appreciate as we move forward. Last concern here that I have is kind of ties into both of these, is Realm Royale biting off more than it can chew? Is Hi-Rez biting off more than they can chew with this? If Realm Royale in some world gets even close to the same kind of popularity and user base and almost genre eclipsing and community eclipsing popularity that Fortnite has, is it more than Hi-Rez can chew? I don't know. Again, I'm not I haven't worked for high res. I know some people that have worked with high res and know people that work at high res, but I don't have any sort of inside information. I don't know, you know, I don't know what they can handle and what they want and what their goals are. Does high res want Realm Royale to be a Fortnite level game, or does it just want to make some money off of a title that's kind of like Fortnite? I don't know. So that's what I'm wondering. Um, you know, if it grows and explodes, what is it biting off more than they can chew? Um, One thing that makes me feel a little bit better about it is that High Res has their own, essentially, kind of like production studio now. I believe they're called Streamlined Media. Let me double check that. Okay, I don't remember what they're called. It's something like that. But regardless, they have a studio essentially that is dedicated to esports for Paladins and for Smite. I mean, Smite has been a huge game, or at least a big game ish, for quite some time. Paladins has, they've done their pro leagues to at least some success because they're still going. But like, are they going to make a bigger push for Realm Royale? Are they going to make any push for Realm Royale? Are we going to start seeing pro teams signed for Realm Royale tournaments? Are they going to start doing pro Realm Royale tournaments? That's all stuff I'd like to see. I mean, I'd love to cast tournaments for Realm Royale. I just think I'm just in this first week, I have such a good understanding of the game and a feel for the game just because I played it so much. Is that I'd love to cast these tournaments, but we're going to see how much of this is going to come from the community. How much is it going to come from the greater community? How much is going to come from high res themselves? We're just going to have to wait and see, essentially. Moving on here in the final couple of minutes of the show, I want to talk about the longevity I see and the future I see for Realm Royale. I think the biggest one here, I mean, at the end of the day, the biggest thing that matters for them is money. At the macro level, if the game's not making money, they can't keep producing it. So how are they going to make money? Well, one thing high res is known for is skins, and more skins. Paladins and Smite both, and even Hand of the Gods, honestly, all have a plethora of really awesome skins that you can get. They have really cool promotions and cross promotions with companies to get exclusive skins, Twitch skins, this mixer skin for this guy up here, that Bandito or Jailbird chicken skin. Side note here, I've streamed for probably 20 hours and have gotten 20 chances to get on this mixer hype zone, and I've not gotten it yet to get this Jailbird skin. So I'm just saying, high res, if you're listening, I'm just saying it's rigged against me. But in all seriousness, I mean, I'm kind of serious about that, but I'm only a little bit salty. In all seriousness, high res known for doing really great skins. I mean, there's so many things they can do. For instance, they can do chicken skins, they can do mount skins, they can do class skins, they could do like ability reskins. They can do so much cool stuff. They already have shown there's already a little like grayed out thing for a battle pass. So just like Fortnite and other games, like buying the battle pass, doing achievements, getting stuff. People really love that. I believe the devs have talked about adding dances and other stuff like that, like Fortnite sprays, all that stuff. Like, there's so much, even more so than Fortnite that you can do with Realm Royale for that. And like, that's a cash cow in and of itself. So as long as the game is mildly popular, they're going to make their money on the skins. They'd never need to charge you for anything. And I think, I hope that the people at high res are smart enough to realize that you can just make your money off of your skins. Don't, nickel and dime the pro grinders and whatnot for other stuff. Which kind of, goes into the next one here, is that Realm Royale can basically add anything that any other Battle Royale game could add. With the exception of like the pickaxes or whatever in Fortnite, which are specific to Fortnite. But there's so much more you can add to Realm Royale, but you can also encompass essentially everything that's in other Battle Royale games. Gun skins, sure, you can do them. They're not going to be as impactful, I think, as PUBG. unless they have a first-person mode with Realm Royale, which, fingers crossed, I'd love first-person. It's also not out of the realm of possibility, considering that Paladin, this game originally was based off of Paladins. It was actually like a Paladin Royale, or Paladin Battlegrounds or whatever. Paladins Battlegrounds, rather. And that's a first-person game, so it's possible that the game even was first-person at some point. I don't know. I'd love to be able to just press a button like in PUBG and switch between first person and third person. Maybe that's something they're working on. I don't know. But you can add anything else from any other games, any other Battle Royale games you could add to Realm Royale in the same capacity. So that there's nothing like that it's missing out on. It's not like, oh, well, we can't add, gun skins because XYZ. Nope, you can. You can add anything you could. You can add much, much more even. To Realm Royale in order for them to make money. The classes, I mean, the game at its core, Fortnite, the only real way you can kind of add variability is to change the map or change the guns, and add other guns and add maybe some objectives and stuff. But like, you can do all that for Realm Royale, but you can also add classes, which with it comes abilities to the class. So you could add a new class. They've kind of the devs have mentioned that they're kind of leery about adding new classes to the game quickly. They want to kind of perfect and get the classes that are already in the game to a point that seems almost complete, or at least like at a level they're happy with before they add new classes, which I 100% love that they're taking it that slow. I don't want to see, oh, next week, well, we're seeing a necromancer and a shaman and a this and a that, and there's 50 classes to play in the game. But if there's 50 classes, there might as well only be 2, right? Because 2 are going to be overpowered and the rest are going to be garbage. Right now, it legitimately feels like you can play any one of the 5 classes and be perfectly fine in solo or in duos or squads. Now, there are probably better combinations than others, and I'm sure I will be talking about those in future episodes, but it really feels like you can load up as a mage, you can load up as a warrior, you can load up as a hunter, assassin, or an engineer, any of those 5, and you can win a game. And it's not like you're pulling teeth or anything. It's not like you're severely underpowered. There's some abilities and stuff that felt overpowered, but they've done a really quick job of addressing a lot of those things. So you can add new classes to the game. You can update the classes with new abilities, with new legendary weapons, with this, that, and the other thing. There's so much you can do. Even without adding a new class into the game, you can do so much with just the classes you already have. And you could also just add new classes at some point. So a huge amount of expansion and keeping things fresh in the game, and that's on top of the things that Fortnite and PUBG are already doing. New map, new weapons, new one-off LTMs or whatever they're called in Fortnite. So much you can do. I mean, it's almost like comical how little PUBG seems to have in terms of what Realm Royale could have. So it's those things about the game that make me really excited about it. Not to mention the game's just fun. Everyone I've talked to that's played, everyone I've played with has just been like, man, this is scratching a battle royale itch that none of the other games have had. And I even feel that way. I did not even consider ever doing a Fortnite show. I did not ever consider doing a PUBG show. And I've played both of those games for dozens of hours. I've played Realm Royale for a similar number of hours as both of those games, maybe even less than both of those games, and here I am making the show, 4 days after I started playing. So I'm very, very excited about this game and what this game's potential is. Now, again, like I mentioned before in the concerns, how is Hi-Rez and the community going to run with that potential? I don't know. I feel like I want to do my part to promote the game and promote all that stuff. So if you guys have any questions or comments or anything about the game, about any of that, feel free to tweet at me at GetCluckedShow on Twitter, or you can use getcluckedshow@gmail.com to send any questions you have. I'm going to link in the bottom, again, the Steam page for the game. So if you want to play free on Steam, you can go there, and then you can just look on, you can look on Twitter. It's just like at Realm Royale and find all the stuff. on there, their Discord page, all that good stuff. But that's going to be the end of the first episode, guys. I hope you had, and gals, I hope you had some fun, maybe learned a little bit, and are just as excited for the game as I am. Again, like I mentioned before, any and all feedback is going to be absolutely greatly appreciated. I want to make the show that you guys want to watch and listen to each and every week. And right now, the show is as malleable as it possibly could be. I don't know if I'm going to do a solo show, if it's going to be more hosts. I'm hoping at some point to get interviews and whatnot with maybe devs or people in the community. But let me know the top 2 things that you'd like to see in the comments below. Would you like this to be just a YouTube show? Would you like it on podcast? I'm probably going to put it on both. I'd probably just put it on both anyway, but let me know what you'd like to see and hear from the show moving forward. But that is going to be it. Again, I am the Blevins. You can find me at _Blevins on Twitter, but you can also find the show at Get Clucked Show on Twitter. The Gmail is getcluckedshow@gmail.com. Any questions, comments you have, post them there or post on the YouTube page. Excuse me, which is probably just going to be it's probably not going to be a named page for quite some time until I get the followers on the page. But I will probably put this on the High Noon podcast feed for a while, as it is a High Noon production. But that is going to be it, guys. I'm the Blevins again, and I don't have an outro, but it'll probably have something to do with chickens. Bye-bye. Step 1, get clucked. Step 2, get clucked. Step 3, like, comment, subscribe. Step 4, get clucked.